Hello and welcome. Welcome. I'm so excited to be talking about this topic today. Shine through your story, rekindle your passion, ignite your light, and illuminate the world by sharing your story. And we are going to kick things off here in just a moment, but I just want to share that this is the very first time that I'm announcing something. The book I have been working on for many years. And it is officially launching on April 18th. And so today's the day we're kind of letting everyone know about the launch date. And I'll give you more details as we go throughout this webinar, where you're going to get a chance to get the book before anyone else, totally free. But if you want to get a sneak peek, you can go to shinethroughyourstory.com/launch. shinethroughyourstory.com/launch. And there's a bunch of information there on how you can join me in helping other people to shine their lights. So let's get started though. What does it mean to shine through your story? You know, I am a firm believer that everyone has a story, and every story matters, truly, no matter who you are, no matter where you've come from, no matter what your purpose in life is, you have a story, and we connect through story. In fact, I believe our stories are gifts. I believe that our stories are gifts that have been given to us from God. You know, some parts of our story are great. Some parts are great, right? Other parts, maybe not so great. But no matter what, your story is your story. The things that have happened to you, your experiences, your passions, all those things make up the story of your life. And I do believe they're a gift from God. But what do we do with gifts? So if you're like me, I'm sure we've all done this, where you go shopping to buy a gift for someone and you secretly want to keep it for yourself, but you know you can't, because why do we get gifts? We get gifts, to give them away, right? We get gifts to give them away. So if your story is a gift, what is that story of your life? What is it that you can share with someone else? And when we share our story, it has a purpose. It's to inspire, it's to motivate, it's to encourage. It could be to teach, to educate, to show somebody how to do something easier than maybe you did it. So that's the whole point of our story. And I'm going to walk you through a formula that I know will help you to get clarity on. Some of you might be thinking, I have no idea what my story is. I'm going to help you to do that. And then what do I even do with it once I do know? So let's get started. I want you to think about, though, the power of your story. As I mentioned, every single person has a story. Everyone, no matter who you are or where you've come from, you have this story. So what if, though, your story was the turning point for someone? Meaning maybe that because you share your story, they're now ready to make a positive change in their life. Or what if you help somebody to overcome something difficult, like an addiction or a broken heart from a broken relationship? Or maybe you were able to help somebody achieve a lifelong goal. Would telling your story be worth it? I think it would. What if your story was the one thing that gave someone hope? You know, when they were feeling down or depressed or discouraged, and they just needed someone to give them a little bit of encouragement. What if that was you? Would it be worth it? And then what if your story helps somebody, either from committing self-harm or harming others? Maybe there's situations where you've been through things. And so if you could keep someone from making some mistakes, would it be worth it? And then finally, what if your story inspired someone to take action, all because they saw you and they thought, gosh, if she can do it, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. So if that's the case, there is power in your story. And I believe that Matthew 5:14-16 is one of my favorite verses, but this verse sums up all of Shine Through Your Story. The reason why I wrote the book, the reason why I'm doing this webinar, the reason why I'm so passionate about helping people's story is because of this verse. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. That's what it's all about. So we were created to shine. I mean, truly, we were created to shine, not just, it's when we shine our light. Hear me when I say this. It's not about us, right? We were created to shine, but not for our purposes. When we shine, when we are our absolute best, when we identify the gifts and strengths and the talents that God has given us freely, and we shine them out to the world to help others, to inspire, encourage, and help equip other people, we are just merely reflecting the light of the sun. The sun. So you were created to shine, and never be afraid to shine, because it could make a difference to just one person. So there's this great story I heard years ago. You've probably heard it too. It's the story of the starfish. And it goes something like this. There was a little boy on the beach, and there was thousands of starfish that had washed up in the high tide. And the little boy was going down the beach, and he was picking up a starfish, and he was throwing it back in the water. And then he'd pick up another one, and he'd throw it back in the water. And this old man comes walking up to him with this kind of grumpy face, and he says, "Little boy, what are you doing?" And the boy says, "I'm saving these starfish, sir." And the old man just kind of chuckles and said, "Little boy, there are thousands of starfish on this beach, and just one of you. What difference could you possibly make?" And the little boy bends down, picks up a starfish, throws it in the water, looks at the old man and said, "I made a difference for that one." That's what our story's about. I'm not here to tell you to write a book, although I love books and I'm a publisher, and I would love for you to consider it, but I'm not here to tell you to do that. I'm here for you to know that you can make a difference, even for just one, by sharing your story in a book, maybe speaking on a stage. Maybe you want to share your story in a blog or a podcast, or maybe you just want to sit across the table from a good friend and share your story that way over a cup of coffee. See, there's no right or wrong way to share your story, but you just have to know you were created to shine. And we shine the brightest when we share our stories, when we share who God made us to be, when we share the good news and the good things that God has done for us. That's what it means to shine. And as I mentioned, my book, Shine Through Your Story, is coming out April 18th. And if this is a message that you feel as passionate about as I do, helping believers to shine as brightly as we can in this dark world, then I invite you to join me in launching the book and getting all kinds of free book and bonuses. And we're going to be having a private community where I'm going to be teaching live every week leading up to the book launch. And so if you're looking for some inspiration and being around other like-minded people, then I encourage you and invite you to join the launch team at shinethroughyourstory.com/launch. Let me take you through what I call the SHINE formula. But SHINE is actually an acronym. And so each one of the letters represents something. And the first one, so the S in SHINE, stands for sow your seeds of greatness. What on earth does that mean? Well, Zig Ziglar had a quote, a famous quote. It was one of my favorite, and I heard it when I was a teenager, and I loved it. And it is, "Man was designed for accomplishment, engineered for success, and endowed with the seeds of greatness." How awesome is that quote? First time I heard it, though, I remember thinking to myself, wow, that means that no matter who you are, no matter where you've come from, no matter what you've been through, you have these seeds of greatness within you. Seeds that were planted in you when you were born, that you didn't do anything to earn or deserve, right? They're just things that make you unique and special, and God gave them to you as a gift. But what do we do with seeds? If you just had a whole bunch of seeds in a little packet, maybe you bought from a Home Depot or a gardening store, what good do those seeds do staying in the packet? Meaning you have to plant them. You have to nourish them. You have to do things to make them grow. So, reading books, listening to podcasts, watching webinars like this, these are the things that are going to help your spirit, your gifts, your desire to germinate and start to grow and flourish. And that's what it's all about. But these seeds that are within us, again, they are designed to develop and grow, but for His purpose. And when we develop and grow into all that we were created to be, that is when we can shine the brightest. But here's the thing. A tomato seed is not going to grow into a tree, and a sunflower seed is not going to grow into a zucchini, right? We have all been given unique things within our seeds of greatness. And so when we plant them, they're going to come out in different ways. For me, I love to write and I love to speak. I love that. That is just part of my calling, I believe. But your seeds might be a little bit different, and they may come out in different ways. So no matter the purpose of what God's planted in you, what it does, right? When it becomes all it's created to be, it may look different for all of us, but just know it's our definite opportunity, but surely also a responsibility that we do something with the gift that God has given us. Have you ever given a gift to one of your kids or to a friend or someone and they didn't appreciate it? Or worse yet, you give them a gift that you know is going to make their life better, happier, all of the things that you just know that this gift is going to do for them, and they don't ever use it. Would you be upset with that person? Would you be so disappointed that you knew that this gift would change their life, that you didn't? They never saw it. That's what happens when we don't recognize the gifts that God's given us. That's what this is all about. So recognizing them, letting them develop into who they're supposed to be is really the key and the first step in shining. You can't shine a light if you don't know what it is. So I first discovered my seeds of greatness in 1989, and many of you have heard my story, so I'll just briefly share it. But I went to work for Zig Ziglar in the 90s, but I met him in 1989. I actually went to his Born to Win seminar, and it was a 3-day event that I didn't want to go to. My parents kind of forced me to go, but I ended up loving it. And seeds were being planted. Didn't even know how they were going to take root, but they were getting planted deep within me. And I ended up working for Zig not long after I graduated from college, and I worked for him about 4.5 years after I met him. And it was an incredible experience. It was the beginning of my career, and it just really laid my foundation for what I'm passionate about and helping people to be all that they were created to be. I got to see firsthand through my mentor, Zig Ziglar. So that was a season in my life that was very positive and great. But the next season was different. I quit Ziglar to go pursue technology sales. I was in IT staffing at first, and then I went into software sales. And I was in that industry for 13 years. And it was a very different industry, I'll just say, from working at Ziglar. But it was part of my story. And I needed to go through those years to determine that I really knew there was more for my life. I wouldn't be doing this webinar, certainly would not have written my book, Shine Through Your Story, had I stayed at Ziglar, because I had to realize there was more to me that was not being tapped. And so making a long story short, it was in 2009, I decided to do something with my seeds of greatness. I decided to write a book. And my first book was called Winning in Life Now, How to Break Through to a Happier You. Now, it's a funny long story. I won't go into all the details, but let me just tell you, I never, ever, ever, ever intended for anyone to read that book except for my boys and my husband and my family, and maybe a couple close friends. But my intention, my boys were in elementary school when I wrote that book, and I wanted them to know my story. I just wanted them to have it. I just wanted to document my thoughts, my beliefs, the things that matter to me. I wanted them to have that in writing for life, for always. So I did that, but I never anticipated what would happen as a result of me writing that book. And that's a whole other seminar, and I actually do a whole event called Book Bound. But that one book is what opened up the opportunity for me to do everything I'm doing today, which again is part of my calling. It may not be yours. But then I went on to write more books, Busy Being Busy, but Getting Nothing Done, which is for people like me who struggle with procrastination. And then I did a couple books helping others to see the value in writing a book, and especially in building your business, a ministry, or whatever you want to use it for, building a platform. And all of that really led on to me seeing the opportunity to help other people to tell their stories, because there's just not enough good resources out there to help people to get their story out, and letting the author keep all the benefit. And that's what we do with my publishing company. I'm telling you all this to tell you, though, that this is my story, and this is part of who I am. Now, my story has evolved so much. You have a story that's probably evolving too. But the point of all this is it all stems from what has God put within you that needs to take root, that needs to flourish, that needs to grow and become more than what it is today. What are your seeds of greatness? One of the ways that I love helping people to identify their gifts is I do coaching, and we do, seminars and things like that. But when we're talking about purpose and why am I really here? What does God want me to do for him, for others? These questions are really great questions to start to think about it, to think about who you are and what is your story. Things like, what do you enjoy doing? What would you do if you couldn't fail? That's a great question, because these are probably clues to your purpose. What inspires you? What ideas? What are you drawn to when you're reading the news, or maybe when you go to a bookstore? What are you drawn to? That gives you a clue to your purpose. When do you feel empowered? What are you doing when you know you've done a great job? Is it maybe you're with kids, empowering people? Maybe you're speaking, maybe you're writing. Those are clues to your purpose. What's on your bucket list? That just means what is so important that you know before your last day, you know that you need to do this. For me, it was writing a book. I knew. I couldn't explain it, but I just knew that I knew that I knew God was nudging me to tell my story. And I'm so glad I did. And I can't wait to see what other stories are going to come out. But that was my bucket list back in 2008. And in 2009 is when I made that happen. So, and then finally, what legacy do you want to leave? Your story, again, this has nothing to do with the book, but your story is your legacy. You are going to be leaving a legacy, whether you plan it or not. So getting intentional about what legacy you want to leave is really all about what it means to sow your seeds of greatness and get started identifying your story. Then the H is you really have to honor your story. And what do I mean by that? Well, stories matter. Stories matter so much. Even if they only matter to one person, it's worth it, right? So finding out our story and honoring it, meaning when I say honor, I mean some parts of our story are messy, right? Maybe there's some things that we don't want to talk about, or things we didn't want to happen, but they did. And it's now just a part of your life story. So what you can do, though, is not necessarily talk about things you don't want to talk about, but really thinking about, well, how can I use this story for somebody else's benefit? There's an exercise we do in my workshops, and I'll just give you the highlights of it now so you can do this on your own. But it's a really great tool to figure out what your core story is. It could be that this core story ends itself up in a book. It could be that it's just something that you share with friends. But the two things to look at for your story is your passions and your experiences. Passions being, what lights you up? What do you love to do? What are you drawn to? Some of those questions that I just asked you. And you're going to write as many things as you possibly can on the left side of that of this T chart. And those are your passions. Now, your experiences are different. They could be things you're passionate about, but a lot of them, like I mentioned, may not be. So maybe you've been through divorce, maybe you've been through bankruptcy or abuse or things that you did not want to experience, but yet you did. Those go on the list. Maybe you have experience being a mom or traveling or writing a book. Those go on the list. So it's significant experiences that go on the list. And so when you do this, you have passions listed, experiences listed, and now it's a matter of looking at all of this holistically, because you're more than just your passions, and you're certainly more than your experiences. But this is who you are. Your story is you. But the key in finding your core message is seeing where there might be an intersection. I am always very open and honest and hopefully authentic with my story. Not all parts of my story are great. But my passions, I love personal development. I love the beach. I love like-minded people. I love pugs. I have 2 amazing little pugs that are my favorite dogs ever. I love babies. I love my faith. I'm passionate about all of these things. On my experience side, I have a ton of experience in sales. I am a mom of 2 amazing young men who are 23 and 19. I work for Zig Ziglar, pretty amazing experience. I'm an author, a speaker. A long time ago, I was a dancer, and I got to do some cool things like travel to Australia to dance and do a bunch of stuff, which was awesome. You wouldn't know it now, but I was a dancer at one point in my life. And what's the last thing on my list? Something I don't want to talk about. But when I was younger, when I was middle school, high school for sure, I struggled with confidence. I struggled with a low self-esteem. And there was really no rhyme or reason why. I had an amazing childhood family, but for some reason it was planted in my head that I wasn't good enough, probably by some kid on a playground somewhere. But I held on to that. And why is this on my list when I don't want to talk about it? Because it impacted my life. It impacted the decisions I made, the people I hung out with, so it has to go on my list. You have things like that too. They need to go on your list in order for you to get real with your story. Doesn't mean you need to write a book about it, but it does show you who you are. Now, the key and the magic in this exercise is looking for the intersection. So finding something that you have passion for and experience. So for me, I love personal development. I first started loving it at 18 when I met Zig. And I work for Zig. You see, that's a connection. I love personal development. I work for the master of personal development. I also love personal development. I've read books, listened to tapes and CDs and all these things through the years to get my mindset right. And it intersects with my low self-esteem experience because I had to read all those books to get my mind in a better place. See the intersection? You have that too. I could spend hours just on this tool, but try this. Do it at home. Do your T-chart and see what comes out of it. Because if you want to make a difference, there is no other way to do it. You have to tell your story. You can't impact anyone if you don't share who you are authentically. Because we connect through stories, and frankly, we want to connect with real people. Nobody can relate to perfection. But when you share, like, you know what, I've been through some stuff, or, you know, I learned a couple things, or I've learned how to build a business. Let me share it with you. Or I've learned how to be a better parent or a better spouse. Let me share it with you. That is why we share our story. All right, moving on to the I in shine, and that is identify what's holding you back. So there's a lot in our minds at all times, right? That head junk that just doesn't go away. Fears, doubts, insecurities, all of these things sometimes hold us back from being all that we were created to be. So figuring that out for yourself, what is it for you? Is it procrastination? Is it fear? Is it insecurities? Something that I've seen over and over again in coaching people is a lot of times it just boils down to a lack of belief. I call it the number one dream killer, because when you don't believe in yourself, or believe that you have what it takes, or believe that anybody would ever care about you or your story, guess what? You're right. And it will hold you back. Doesn't mean you're right in that you were correct in that. It just means that if you don't believe it, nobody else will believe it either. So you have to figure that out. What is going through your head? What is holding you back? What are you telling yourself? What have people said to you that maybe you've held on to as truth? At the end of the day, these negative thoughts, these things that go through our head that say, who do you think you are? Nobody cares what you have to say. You're no Zig Ziglar. That was my head junk for a long time. Is garbage. Truly, it's just garbage. And it's the one thing that will continuously hold you back over and over and over and over and over again. I was recently listening to a devotional of Joyce Meyer's just today, actually, and it was talking about the battlefield of the mind. And this head junk is what keeps most believers from really living out their full destiny. And that's what I don't want that for myself. I know you don't want it for you. So just know this. You have to change how you see yourself before anyone else is going to see you differently. People will believe in you to the exact degree that you believe in yourself. So if you believe that you have something to share that could help someone, and you believe that you're doing it for the right reasons, then guess what? Other people will believe you too. And the opposite is also true. So believe in yourself, identify what's holding you back. And then now we move on to the N in the SHINE formula. And that is, now is the time to write your story. I said it up front, I'm not going to convince you to write a book per se. You don't have to publish a book to help to shine your light. But I do believe that writing it down is one of the best ways to get clarity on what is your story. But also, I think we get these, I call them downloads, but these insights into what our purpose is, maybe where God's leading us, or, maybe just writing down what you're grateful for. What is that going to open up for you? I believe it's going to open up a lot to give you that clarity into your purpose and how you can shine your light. There's an amazing verse in Jeremiah 32, and that is, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel says, write in a book everything, all the things I've spoken to you. When I first heard that verse, I was actually teaching my book bound seminar. It was in Destin, Florida in 2018. I'll never forget this. And it's a 3-day event, and we had about 70 attendees at that particular one. Sunday morning, I do an optional session, a devotional, that for anybody who wants to come, we're just going to, start the morning off in prayer and a little devotional that I lead. Well, I am such a planner. And so normally I have everything all planned out. Well, come to find out the morning of, I had forgotten to plan the devotional. I had the whole event planned to a T, but the devotional I didn't. And I really had no idea what I was going to be sharing with the group that morning. And I said a prayer and I'm like, Lord, you're just going to have to show me. And this is the verse I heard in my spirit, a verse I'd never, ever read before. And when I read that, my eyes just were, or my whole mind blown. This is what the God of Israel says. Write in a book all the words I've spoken to you. Because here I was at an event teaching people how to write a book. But the reason about writing a book and sharing our story is to talk about how faithful God's been. What has he done in your life? That is the point of it. And even if it's just for you, journal it, write it down, keep a record of it. I've been journaling since I was in, elementary school, but the real one started more in middle school. I can go back and see all of my prayer requests, all the things that I was struggling with, and how, without really knowing until I went back and looked, how God worked them all out. So if for no other reason, start journaling, put your conversations with God down on paper and see what comes of that. And I do believe it's going to open up some things for you. I have a formula just for praying through journaling that I'd love to share with you. It's actually something that we are giving away on the shinethroughyourstory.com website. Also, for those in the launch team, you will get a free copy of this prayer poster. So go to shinethroughyourstory.com/launch. But it's a formula to help you to get clarity on when you're sitting in front of a blank piece of paper. Where do I start? We'll start with praise. P, it's an acronym. I love acronyms, evidently. P stands for praise. Thank God for all the things he's done for you. R, repent. What have you done that you need to ask forgiveness for? God already knows your sins, but it's in that act of, it's in sharing it with him. You're in agreement with him. And that opens up the ability for you. Nothing will stand in the way of you connecting with God once you've asked for forgiveness. Ask is A. What is it that you want God to do for you, for your family? What are you praying for? Ask and you shall receive. Yield is to listen. Once you've asked and you're asking for some answers, then just stop and listen. And then the E stands for enter, which means whatever you hear, write it down. And whatever you hear, you must respond. God told me in 2000, long before I actually did it, but probably in 2006, to write a book. And I was so stubborn. I thought, no, who am I? Who am I to write a book, right? And it wasn't until 2009 that I actually did it. And the moment I obeyed and responded and wrote that book, all of a sudden these doors of opportunity flew open for me. I could not have even known about, let alone planned. And so I do believe that when we are in alignment with God and we listen and we seek him and then we respond by doing what he's calling you to do, maybe he's calling you to tell your story. You should do it. You should do it. All right. Let me wrap this up with E. E is the best part. So once you've identified your seeds of greatness, your gifts, your talents, the things, your purpose in life, and you've honored the fact that you have a story that's worthy of sharing, and you've identified what would keep you from sharing it, whether it's fear, doubt, insecurities, and you've started to journal, you started to write down thoughts, you started to get the things out of here onto paper. Now, E stands for encourage and equip others. And this happens automatically. When you step out and shine your light, when you become all that you were created to be, you have no idea the impact it has on other people without you even trying. I mean, truly, we can inspire other people. This is from a poem, but as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. So if you're like me and you want to make a difference, you just have to know, be all you're created to be. Don't play small. Don't hide in fear of what people will think. Just shine your light. Be what you were created to be, and you will, in the process, encourage and equip others to do the same. In the end, Zig's, one of his favorite quotes or famous quotes was, you can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. It's so simple, right? And what do people want? They want hope. They want to know that they're not alone. They want to know that maybe there's a better, easier, faster way to get through, go through, build something that they need to know that you've been through, right? We all need to help each other. Because otherwise, if we don't, well, how tragic is that? Actually, Tom Ziglar shared a story with me, Zig Ziglar's son, and it's called The Sin of the Desert. He didn't make it up, and he's not really, neither one of us are sure exactly who was the originator of this story, but I want to paraphrase it for you. The sin of the desert is, imagine you're in the desert and you're with a group of people and you're wandering through the desert and it is hot. I mean, obviously it is hot, 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 and there is no water. I mean, everyone is dehydrated and literally dying of thirst. And you are a little ahead of the group and you kind of walk around a corner and all of a sudden you find the water. You find this well of water and it is just flowing and there's enough for everyone. And guess what you do? You don't tell anyone. You keep it all to yourself. That would be a sin. That's the sin of the desert. The truth is you're thinking, well, I would never do that. Well, I would think the same thing, but the truth is we do it every day when we keep what could potentially encourage someone, inspire someone, educate someone to ourselves. Because we think, yeah, but they don't really care, or I don't want them to think this about me, or I don't want to act like I'm showing off, or I don't want this, I don't want that. Well, that's a sin because God's given you the gifts and who you are for a purpose. And the purpose is not for you. The purpose is for Him and His glory. And that is why we are called to shine our light. So I'll just wrap this up with wherever you are, whatever your intention was in listening to the webinar, maybe reading the book, I just want to encourage you, there is no coincidence, right? And so if something resonated with you, just start journaling about it. See what comes out of that. But I know one thing is for sure, no matter who you are, no matter where you've come from, you do have a story. It is worth sharing. Your story can and will change the lives of other people. But most importantly, when you shine, He shines. And that's what this book and what I'm really passionate about doing is all about. So if you want to get on board with me and join my launch team, go to shinethroughyourstory.com/launch. Again, you're going to get access to the book immediately, like long months before anybody else. But we're also going to have a private Facebook community where it's just for people like me and you who are, we want to inspire each other. We want to encourage each other. We want to circle around each other and say like, hey, what can you do? What can I do to shine a little bit brighter? We're going to have bonuses. My team's going to be on there. So it's just an opportunity to do this together. And I would love and be honored if you would join me in this launch. So that's it for the Shine Through Your Story webinar. If you have any questions, you can email us at support@shinethroughyourstory.com. support@shinethroughyourstory.com, or join the launch so you can join us in the Facebook community. Thanks, everybody. Make it a great day.